she's just over there. Now that the adoption proceedings are final, it's my honor to formally introduce my daughter, Lila. And her other father is with us today, Greg Wirch. I am so lucky to have him in my life. Greg and I were among the thousands of Colorado couples who entered into the civil union after the new law passed last year. I know several of us yesterday went to former Representative, former Senator Ken Jordan's memorial service. And during that service, Rabbi Foster talked about the sacrifice we make as public officials, but he also talked about the sacrifice our families make. And an opening day, when we have so much families with us, please join me in thanking all of our families for allowing us to do this and their support and love. Introduce my twin sister Nicole, who has been my biggest supporter from day one, literally. And let me take a moment to recognize the Arapahoe High School community, the students, educators, first responders, and families involved in the terrible day have shown unbelievable strength and courage. I especially want to recognize the family of Claire Davis, who are in our thoughts and prayers. As Colorado emerges from the Great Recession, we are well positioned to prosper in the years ahead. We've seen unemployment begin to recede. People are seeking new job opportunities, a range of fields. Jobs with descriptions that didn't even exist just 10 years ago. Dynamic, talented people are flocking here from across the country. It's an exciting time to be a Colorado. And yet challenges remain. Too many Coloradans still struggle to keep their families afloat. As Speaker, I will continue to do everything in my power to guide this chamber in the direction of putting people ahead of politics and building a brighter future for all of Colorado. Now is not the time to take a step backward, to relitigate the fights of the past, and to descend into Washington-style impasse and dysfunction. Now is the time to continue moving Colorado forward and to build for Colorado's future. We are committed to a legislative agenda that focuses on three goals: enhancing the economic security of all Coloradans, strengthening our education system to prepare our students and make college more affordable, and helping Coloradans recover from the floods and fires we suffered in 2013. When it rains in Colorado, it usually is 10 or 15 minutes until the sun breaks through again. But on September 9th, along the northern Front Range, 10 or 15 minutes became all day. September 9th became September 10th, and still it rained. And it kept raining on the 11th and the 12th, and the 13th and 14th and 15th. The National Weather Service, which tries to avoid hype, called these storms biblical. When the sun finally did return a week after the rains began, Colorado was confronted with epic ruin. Numbers hardly express the full scope of the damage, yet numbers are startling. 10 people lost their lives in and because of the great floods of 2013. 485 miles of state roadways were closed. More than 100 bridges were damaged. 18,000 people were displaced from their homes. More than 17,000 structures were damaged or destroyed. The total economic damage from the floods were estimated as high as $2 billion. It was the costliest disaster in our state's history. Entire communities like Lyons and Estes Park were cut off from the rest of the state. Areas in and around Longmont, Fort Collins, Boulder, and Greeley suffered heavy damages. Our state agencies mobilized to rescue, stabilize, and rebuild. And those folks haven't stopped yet. Because Colorado is a state full of good neighbors, of people willing to lend a hand. To date, more than 1,800 people have contributed to recovery efforts, including civil servants from the Colorado Office of Emergency Management, CDOT, FEMA, the Colorado, Kansas, Montana, and Utah National Guards, and dozens of county and municipal governments. Nearly 700 people are still on the job. More than 28,000 Coloradans and more than 50 national, state, and local volunteer organizations have contributed their own time and money to help those hurt by the floods. Just another example of Coloradans being good neighbors and standing stronger together. People like Pastor Dan Skates and the congregants of LifeBridge Christian Church in Longmont. Pastor Skates' church served as an evacuation shelter and staging site during the first days of the flood. In the weeks after the disaster, the congregation shifted their focus to recovery, and to date have provided some 2,000 volunteer hours. Please welcome Pastor Skates and thank him and his congregation for their efforts. From Weld and Larimer counties, we're joined by leaders of the Community Foundation serving Greeley and Weld County, the United Way of Weld County, and the Northern Colorado chapter of the Red Cross. Please thank Judy Knapp, Janine Trustwell, and Aaron Mounsey and their staffs and volunteers. Response has produced extraordinary results. Every one of the displaced families has moved into temporary housing or found a rental. Businesses throughout the flood zones are receiving assistance. Lines in Estes Park are not only reachable again, but very much open for business. And all the state roadways closed by the floods have reopened. I confess, when Governor John Hickenlooper announced the December 1st road reopening date, I thought it was perhaps too bold. I should have known better than underestimating our governor and the capable workers, the amazing workers at CDOT. The job was done on November 26th. Please join me in thanking the governor and welcoming 3 CDOT employees who spearheaded the road rebuilding process: Dan Marcucci, Ken Schaefer, and Robin Stillman. Longmont's Manager of Natural Resources, who is with us today representing all the local officials who work day and night to coordinate the disaster response. And of course, we all owe a debt of gratitude to our first responders, who showed unbelievable poise and MacGyver-esque creativity and skill in responding to the disaster. On September 12th, Erin Brazel was driving across Longmont to pick up her young daughter when a wall of water engulfed her Nissan Altima. It lost power and began to fill with water. She called 911. When several rescuers, including Lieutenant Mike Becker and his crew from the Longmont Fire Department, were finally able to locate the car, it was barely visible, nearly submerged. Erin's breathing space had been reduced to a few inches at the roof of her car. 3 members of the Mountain View Fire Rescue, Captain Chad Rademacher, Steve Knoll, and Sean Talman, struggled through the rising water to reach her car. The responders had to pry off the windshield and lift Miss Brazel out of the car. And Mountain View Fire medic Jamie Wood, riding a personal watercraft, yes, that's right, a jet ski, took her to safety. Erin and her rescues are here with us today. Please join me in thanking all the first responders who showed such ingenuity and bravery during the storms. Without them, it's unimaginable how much worse it could have been. Thank you. and we must see it through to completion, because nothing less than the fullest possible recovery is acceptable to me, to the other 99 lawmakers in the General Assembly, to the people of the 24 impacted counties, and indeed to the entire state of Colorado. In the weeks after the floods, I worked with leadership from both parties and both chambers to establish the Flood Disaster Study Committee. We made this committee strictly bipartisan. 6 Democrats, 6 Republicans, with a co-chair from each party. The floodwaters didn't care about the party affiliation of the families whose house was destroyed, and neither do we. Working under tight deadlines, committee members traveled the impacted communities to hear firsthand from those who suffered the greatest loss on what they needed the most. I thank Representative Dave Young and Senator Scott Renfro, the co-chairs of the committee, and the other committee members for their efforts to help the state recover. Their bipartisan work will also help the people of Manitou Springs and Colorado Springs with the flood damage they suffered in August. I'm proud the bills considered by the Flood Committee will be the first measures I introduce this legislative session. Members, 3 months before we had the most damaging flood in our state's history, we had the most damaging wildfire in our state's history. 2 lives were lost in the Black Forest Fire, which raged from June 11th to June 20th. It destroyed or damaged 486 homes, a record setter for a Colorado wildfire. Once again, we saw a remarkable outpouring of assistance. More than 500 firefighters from Colorado and neighboring states responded to the blaze, and help poured out to assist the 40,000 people from 3 counties who fled the flames. Today, with the assistance of state, county, and local authorities, families are resettling and rebuilding where they can. Unfortunately, it's clear that we will face this kind of danger again and again. Members, Colorado is visited by devastating tornadoes, battering hailstorms, ferocious winds, and biblical floods. But make no mistake, wildfire is an ongoing and annual danger. Unlike what some are calling the 1,000-year flood, the Black Forest Fire broke a record that had only been set 1 year ago in the Waldo Canyon fire. As our state population grows, it's inevitable that more people will live in areas prone to wildfire. Decades of fire suppression only mean that there's a lot more forest to burn. Toss in more than 1 million acres of beetle kill forest, and the situation grows more explosive with each passing year. We'll need to stand together to confront the annual danger posed by fire. We can do more to promote fire safety and responsible development. Our interim wildfire committee met again last year. We crafted legislation to provide additional equipment and training to our dedicated firefighters and to establish the Wildfire Information Resource Center for homeowners and educators. Those are just 2 of the common sense proposals that the interim committee sent to us for consideration, and I thank them for the creativity and good work. Our ability to recover from shocks like floods and fires last year was due in part to the fiscally prudent budgets Democrats and Republicans have passed during the Great Recession, where we not only boosted our emergency reserves while balancing our finances, we also created some room to make critical investments in important priorities, such as public education. Make no mistake, the work we do this year in the General Assembly cannot make up for the loss our schools have faced during the Great Recession. But with revenue continuing to recover, we can continue to crawl back. Our goal is to make our education system stronger, more accountable, and better for all Colorado students. And that means working together to target more resources where they're needed the most, in the classroom. Over the last several years, we've passed bipartisan landmark legislation to improve student performance, enhance accountability, and ensure that our students, regardless of circumstances, can become effective learners and competitive job seekers after they graduate. I'm glad to see bipartisan support for many of the provisions contained in last year's school finance measure. So I'm hopeful that we can work together to find ways to implement various common sense enhancements to our schools. Measures like flexible student count dates, professional development for our teachers, and expanded programs for English language learners. But while some have argued that reform before resources, let me say this. Reform will not work, and our schools will not get better if they are not adequately funded, period. It is a top priority for me and my caucus to provide an excellent education for every Colorado enrolled in a public school, and I hope every person in this chamber will join us in that endeavor. Make substantial investments in our system of higher education and make sure the college degree is affordable to students coming out of high school. We'll consider proposals capping annual tuition increases at our public colleges and universities at 6%, and looking at a model of scholarships that ensure more students can access a college education without crippling debt. Colorado's economy ranks as one of the strongest in the nation. We are fourth in job creation. Our unemployment rate has dropped nearly a full percentage point since our opening day in 2013. And we're only one of a handful of states which has surpassed our pre-recession job numbers. Our focus on advanced industries, job training, and spending Colorado dollars on Colorado businesses and workers is bringing real results that will continue to pay off for years to come. Colorado is making progress, but an unemployment rate of 6.7% isn't good enough. We must not reduce our efforts to facilitate a broader, more sustainable recovery. We'll be looking at ways to expand our economic recovery to help the middle class, like expanding the already popular Advanced Industries Grant Program to develop more exciting new technologies and companies in Colorado, creating more good-paying jobs that are less prone to the boom and bust roller coaster. Enhancing our skills training programs so the Colorado workforce matches up with the highly skilled jobs that our emerging economy is producing. And giving business owners a break on their business personal property tax. And while increasing opportunities remains of critical importance, so does protecting the newfound prosperity once it's achieved. Economic security. Ensuring that Coloradans do not only have a shot at climbing the ladder, but have a foundation in place to stay on those higher rungs is just as critical in fostering economic opportunity during recovery. That means ensuring that a single mother without a high school diploma can access training she needs to land a new, good-paying job, and that she also has access to affordable child care for her daughter, and that her daughter later in life has a shot at graduating from college without a mountain of debt. That means we're creating opportunities, not only to welcome more Colorado families to the middle class, but also giving them a secure foundation for continued economic growth. The vast majority of decisions we make as a legislature demonstrate shared values and mutual problem solving by Coloradans. We take a little from here and a little from there, and we implement something that's well suited for our state. 94% of the legislation that passed last year went to the governor's desk with bipartisan support. That type of collaborative policymaking is not the type of hyper-partisan rhetoric and high-octane fighting that makes the headlines, but it is the truth. I can cite one example after another from the work we've done over the past years to show that the pundits and partisans who say Colorado is a fractured state, split between left and right, rural and urban, are simply wrong. The legislative examples pale in comparison to the hard work of our state and local agencies and elected officials in the flood and fire-ravaged communities. And they don't speak to the generosity of spirit of Coloradans, regardless of political stripe and geography. It wasn't lost on me when a few counties were voting on whether to separate from Colorado. Our state and local government and charitable organizations were performing one of our most daunting disaster cleanups in some of those same counties. Guess what? Politics didn't matter. What did matter was making sure that people were taken care of. We are in this thing together. It is our great challenge to build a better, stronger Colorado together. Whether it's recovering from disaster, or making our education system better and more equitable, or increasing economic security for all, we will stand stronger together. That's the Colorado way of building for the future.